Hello, lovely viewer. Today's video is one I'm sure many of you who watch my content have been curious about. I always get questions like, how many fandoms have you actually been in? And which ones have you been a part of? So I thought, why not make a video ranking them for y'all? And the answers may or may not surprise you. Now, to clarify, I consider myself a fan of a lot of things that I wasn't necessarily in the fandom for. So the determinants I'm personally using for if I was in the fandom or just a fan are as follows. 1, I've purchased merchandise for it or otherwise spent money on something related to it. 2, I've read and enjoyed more than a handful of fanfics for it. 3, I spent considerable time rewatching or rereading or re-engaging with the media in question to the point where I could recall most of it from memory fairly easily. And 4, talked with or enthused about it to other people. This is just my personal criteria and may be very different for you, but this is just the measuring system that works best for me. I'm gonna do my best to go chronologically so you can kind of see how my fandom journey played out as I grew up. There have been many fandoms, big and small, some I was more involved with than others. Also, I just want to preface that these are only my experiences in the fandoms I'm gonna list. They could be very similar to your own or somebody you know, or they could be totally different. And I think that's really neat. I think it's a really cool conversation to have about how different people navigated and explored these different fan spaces. It's really interesting thinking about the fandoms that I was in before social media became super big and after, because that is a big variable in terms of how I was interacting with other fans and how positive or negative those experiences were. A lot of my earlier fandom experiences, it was just with friends in person who were also into the things that I was. And if I was in a fandom that not a lot of my friends were in, then I'd just be scrolling on DeviantArt or looking at forums here and there by myself. Not a huge amount of interaction in that regard, at least in terms of today with, you know, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube comments. Tumblr though. Oh, Tumblr was a time. Kind of a bridge in my mind between, you know, earlier fandom days and then fandoms how they are now. So buckle up, buttercup. But before we get into that, speaking of seatbelts and bad vibes, you gotta protect yourself from bad rays this upcoming summer. And today's sponsor can help you with that. This video was sponsored by Native.
Native has just released their brand new body and face mineral sunscreen with SPF 30 coverage, 2 delicious scents, pineapple or rosé, as well as an unscented option, and made with non-nano zinc and plant-based ingredients. It's the perfect sunscreen to get your summer started. No streaky white residue with this sunscreen. Vegan and cruelty-free, it is compliant with Hawaii sunscreen regulations as well as dermatologist tested. Vitamin D is important, but so is keeping your skin safe.
I'm a sucker for summer scents and I love the coconut and pineapple sunscreen. I went to the beach for the first time in a while, so I brought Native sunscreen with me and I didn't get burned. I'm making a habit of putting on this guy before putting on my makeup because sunscreen is important. And yeah, it's super lightweight, it's not super streaky, and I've been really enjoying it.
If you're down to try Native sunscreen, get 30% off your Native sunscreen pack by using my code ColeyDoesThings with free shipping to the US. That's code ColeyDoesThings for 30% off.
Thank you again to Native for sponsoring this video, and without further ado, let's get started. So fun fact, I've been a Star Wars fan since, God, I don't even know. My mom's a really big fan, so we watch the movies a lot together. I have so many fond memories of just coming home from school, pulling out the DVD set and choosing one at random, and then just sitting down and watching it with her. But oh, the misogyny. I'm really happy that there's some bite back against it because a lot of girls who like Star Wars are not putting up with it, and I applaud them for that. And with Disney taking it over and exposing it to a much wider audience, yeah, there's gonna be a much more diverse fan base now. I have a lot of mixed feelings about the content itself. There is a lot I could say about what I like and don't like about it, but I know when to keep my mouth shut, especially when people really like the stuff that I happen not to. But a lot of fans don't share that sentiment. There's some meme that's like the one thing that Star Wars fans can agree on amongst each other is that Star Wars sucks, and I can attest to that. Obviously, I love Star Wars, but man, can it suck. There's always kind of this need to prove yourself and what you're talking about. And for a lot of casual fans who may be like dipping in and out of the fandom, it's very discouraging for them. Not a very friendly environment, that's for sure. But with more and more fans coming in and the accessibility of Star Wars nowadays, it's really cool seeing all the content that's come out of it. You see people going really, really deep into the lore and comparing the EU to the current canon. The cosplays are killer, there's a lot of really cool edits out there, but the horde of neckbeards that just inhabit this fandom constantly knock it down a few pegs for me. But yeah, sure, of course I just like Star Wars for Kylo Ren. Nowadays, I'm not super into the fandom. I'm more on a mid to outer rim basis, but I'm gonna go ahead and just slap it into a C rank because it's just kind of there. I definitely see a lot of fandoms that have been a lot more welcoming and in general more positive, but I've also seen a lot of fandoms that were a lot worse. Avatar. Okay, I can look back fondly upon Avatar. So I was really into Avatar: The Last Airbender in 6th grade. And I got into it right before book 3 came out, so I was able to watch book 3 alongside my brother, and we were screaming and crying over the Agni Kai, and Aang versus Fire Lord Ozai, and Zuko and Iroh oh my god. I still feel very blessed that I was able to watch it as it was coming out alongside someone who was super hyped to see it with me in a time of my life where my childhood was just about to end, but I was still able to associate it with that golden era of my childhood, you know? It was also around the time when I was getting more and more online with chat room forums and DeviantArt, so I was getting exposed to fan art for the first time, and that's about the time where I learned what fanfiction was. So Avatar: The Last Airbender was probably my very first bona fide fandom experience. The only negative things I remember from that era was the whole Katang versus Utara ship war going on. I remember checking the number of fics in each category on fanfiction.net, and I'd be like, yes, when Zutara was still on top. That was the eye-opener for me for Red and Blue, rivals to lovers. Even as a kid, you could feel how fleshed out the characters were. And people in the fan base at the time agreed, and you see all these theories about what was going to happen next. When Zuko turned good again, oh my gosh, I remember seeing everyone's reactions online after that, and it was just like, wah! Everybody watched it because it was on Nickelodeon at the time, and I remember some popular jock kid in my class getting like asked, wait, you watched Avatar? He's like, yeah, I always watch Avatar, and I was so shook. It united people, just like the nations were united at the end. I think I'm gonna put Avatar at a solid A tier, honestly. I just can't think of enough reason to dock it down further. It was like the perfect introduction to fandoms for me, so A for Avatar. Oh, and here we visit Coley's angsty middle school phase. So my mom actually read Twilight before I did, but I got curious and she was like, all right, well, if he can handle it, then here you go. A 6th grader probably shouldn't have been reading Twilight, but I remember bonding with my 6th grade English teacher and PE teacher over those books, so I'll take it as a win. It's hard to think about this era of my life without cringing, but at the time, I was just having such a good old time thinking about vampires. They were just so cool and so misunderstood to me at the time. I was head over heels for Twilight. I think I even had a sticker that said, Bella stole my Edward Cullen. I remember witnessing all the Team Jacob and Team Edward scuffles online, on DeviantArt, on chat rooms and the like. The amount of times I was on MySpace too, just seeing people ramble about Twilight. Wow. There was a lot of debate over Breaking Dawn in particular. Some people loved it, some people hated it, but it was a very polarizing book. Lots of discussions about the movies too. Those were also quite polarizing for the fans. Yeah, but going to Hot Topic, getting those god-awful Twilight shirts and those little pendants and jewelry they wore in the movies. Oh, good lord. Well, at least little Coley was having the time of her life back then. One of my aunts was also really into the series, and we did like Twilight-inspired crafts together. That was really wholesome. I think I'm gonna put Twilight at a B tier. It wasn't bad by any means. I actually had a pretty positive fan experience, minus the whole, like, team whatever your favorite supernatural boy is scuffles going on. But my time in that fandom, it's just too weird to put higher, you know? B for Vampire Bite, that's how we're gonna go. When the night has come. So Night World is a series of books written by L.J. Smith, who is the author of The Vampire Diaries, that preceded Twilight but is still along a similar vein. And after I finished Twilight, I wanted more stuff similar to it, so Night World scratched that itch really well. The fandom was pretty small, and it was interesting because the book series was actually written in the 90s, but it had a revamp because L.J. Smith was working on the finale for several years. But unfortunately, for whatever reason, it kept on getting pushed back, and we still don't have the finale. I just hope L.J. Smith is doing all right at this point because I don't know what she's been up to. But yeah, I loved the book series, and I found some fics online, a little bit of fan art, but it was such a small fandom. Not a lot was going on. It was kind of just made up of people twiddling their thumbs waiting for Strange Fate, the final book, to come out. It was just a very fandom experience. I think I'm just gonna put it in B tier because it was enjoyable, but it just not much was happening. I'm still really curious about how the series will end though, so... Oh my god, Percy Jackson. Wow, okay, I loved Percy Jackson. I lived for mythology as a kid. Oh, you guys don't know how much of a Percabeth shipper I was. I lived for that ship. I read so much Percabeth fanfic back in the day. That underwater kiss at the very end. I watched the movie with my friends who loved it at the time, and we all loved Logan Lerman, and we thought he did an excellent job in the role, but otherwise we were just like, it doesn't really feel like Percy Jackson. If you guys remember Birch Bud, she did a lot of Harry Potter and Percy Jackson fan art. She fed my fan art loving soul so well in middle school. My friends and I would take those which Greek god would be your godly parent quizzes, and I always got Hades because I was a little edgy child back in 7th grade. I kind of was on the periphery of the fandom once the Heroes of Olympus series came out, and I know the fandom has changed a lot over the years, but from just my experience in it when it was just the Percy Jackson series, it was a really, really fun time. I will rank my time in the Percy Jackson fandom as an A. Harry Potter! I got into Harry Potter a little later than most of the crowd. I actually read it after Twilight, and I think part of me was like, well, I made it this far in the supernatural fictional world book series, might as well get into the big kahuna. And I can say that I enjoyed my time in the Harry Potter fandom. I just remember geeking out about it with my friends who were already into it, and then I was like, whoa, why didn't you guys tell me that was this good? Like, I love Harry Potter now. And they were like, yeah, we got another one. I got super into the next gen stuff and remembered, okay, these are Bill's kids, and these are, I almost said Fred and George's kids. It's Fred's kids. Who's Astoria Greengrass, and why do I want to be her? I was pretty on board with the canon ships, although I think a small part of me did want Luna and Harry to end up together, and I think that still exists. Or Luna and Neville, that would also be really cute. And I always found Drarry fascinating. Like, I didn't ship it myself, but a few of my friends did, and it was just like, huh, that's about it. I know a lot of people wanted J.K. Rowling to continue it, and I'm glad she didn't. Daniel Radcliffe wrote Harry Potter. What are you talking about? I will also put Harry Potter alongside Avatar, because those two are roughly equal in my mind in terms of how my experiences with the fandom went. Yeah, nothing really to complain about. Just little tips here and there, but otherwise pretty enjoyable. Ben 10 was really fun for me because I'm a big sci-fi person, I love aliens, and yeah, it was a great cartoon. In terms of fandom tips, I can really only remember little debates about which iteration of the show was best. There was the original Ben 10, Alien Force, Ultimate Alien, and then the newest one is Omniverse, I think. I didn't watch that one. I absolutely loved Ben and Julie together and their little ship. Kevin and Gwen were also really cute. God, there were so many like alien shenanigans. Now I know why I love aliens so much. But the fandom was really chill, at least in my experience. I didn't read a ton of fanfic for it, but the ones I did read, I enjoyed. Yeah, this one's pretty easy. I would put this one in A tier. Very chill. I have so many fond memories of coming home from school in 7th grade and watching Teen Titans on Cartoon Network. That was such a good show in that every character in the main team had at least some spotlight at some point. If not a few episodes, then at least a whole season. And there were so many cool side characters too. Like you had the High Five and Kid Flash and a plethora of other heroes. In terms of ships, I oscillated between really loving Raven and Robin, and then Robin and Starfire. With my knowledge of DC now and watching all the different interpretations of those relationships, it just depends on the iteration and the timeline you're in. Which Robin you're talking about. Is it Dick Grayson? Is it Damian Wayne? With regards to the fans, I don't remember there being any drama. It was a really chill fandom. People just watched the show and talked about things they liked from it. Like, I genuinely don't have any complaints about this fandom, at least how it was when I was in it at the time. There was maybe some contention about the Tokyo movie and people upset that the show ended as it did. I can't think of anything else. You know what? Yeah, let's put Teen Titans in S tier. Why not? Now, YuGiOh was my very first anime. I got super into it with my brother. We had multiple decks, we duel each other all the time, we had a dual disc at some point. And to this day, I am such a simp for Seto Kaiba and Yusei Fudo. And YuGiOh Abridged, classic. I remember going to a couple game shops, and the guys who played YuGiOh there were kind of creepy, not gonna lie. I would be the only girl in the game store buying and trading cards, and I'd get so many weird looks, get asked weird questions. It just wasn't very comfortable. I do remember being present for a lot of bad YouTube comment wars in terms of YuGiOh. I think debating over protagonists and, oh my god, this system is so broken, or why did this person win this duel? It's so dumb. It's teetering between B and C for me. I think I will be generous and put it at a B because when I avoided the areas that made me feel uncomfortable, it was great. A lot of cool fan content. I read a lot of fan fiction that still sticks with me to this day. Yeah, I think I'm gonna put it at a B. I will definitively say that Naruto was not a bad fandom for me, but it wasn't super good either. It was one of the first anime fandoms I was in, so it was kind of exploring a new world for me in that regard. There were a lot of shipping scuffles, and it's funny because I think this was the fandom where I was kind of teetering between, oh, wait, I can like gay pairings too? And no, I have to stick with the straight stuff. Heteronormativity, yay! My friends and I would have a lot of fun planning Naruto cosplays. It never really happened, but it was fun planning them. We'd all on Sasuke and then absolutely praise Itachi. Akatsuki in general. Whew. It was one of the few times in my life where I actually indulged in YN fiction, and it was all for the Akatsuki boys. Specifically Deidara and Itachi, and occasionally Sasori. But my main association with Naruto is just talking about it in my high school chemistry class sophomore year with a handful of friends and just having a really good time talking about our theories of what would happen next and which characters we liked and didn't like. And that experience kind of carried over to the internet overall as well. So many AMVs too. I still go back and revisit them whenever I'm feeling nostalgic. I really didn't have that many hostile experiences except for like a few times where people would get mad at me for liking ship A over ship B, or character A over character B, or not being far enough in the manga. I also will put Naruto at a B tier. B for Boruto. I don't watch Boruto. Make us free, free! This anime pushed me down into the depths of BL, and spoilers, I still haven't come out. It's just... Free was a lot. Free. What's even funnier is that I was introduced to it by my childhood friend who's Mormon, and even she would ship stuff with me. Oh god, I don't even know how long I was cruising on the Rinharu train. I'm still on board. What's even funnier is that people would be like, you only watch it for the pretty boys, and it's like, the truth is, I watched it for the plot! Like, I was so invested in the story, especially season 2 where they were figuring out what the heck they wanted to do with their lives. That spoke to me because I was in high school, was like, I don't know what to do with my life, and I saw that reflected in the show. Like, obviously, yes, the pretty boys were a good chunk of it, but the story too. Now, the Mako Haru versus Rin Haru ship war is legendary in my mind. It tore friendships apart. People would be throwing fan art at each other left and right, being, this is cuter, no, this is cuter. I would also keep tally of where the ships were in terms of how many fics each of them had, and always be like, dang it, when Mako Haru was higher. The one uniting factor amongst everyone, though, was Regisa. There was so much mermaid fan art and fanfics for it, too. I think I will have to put Free at a B tier. As fun of a time as it was, it doesn't really measure up to the other A tier things I have in mind. So I got into this anime in my freshman year of high school, which was in 2011. And if you guys don't really know about the weeb culture then, it was something else. I remember going to my second anime expo ever, and I was in Black Butler cosplay, and literally walked into the door of Artist Alley, and some person in Grell cosplay greeted me and my group by asking if we wanted to go to the little fetish room with them. There wasn't a fetish room. I don't know where that Grell cosplayer wanted us to go with them, but yeah, teenage me was not having it. I think the anime and manga had that level of edginess that really drew in a specific niche crowd of people, the sort of people that would swat your behind with a yaoi paddle. If you don't know what that is, look it up. Man, I feel old. You see them running around the convention with a seme or uke hat on and glomping each other like being very, very touchy to other cosplayers. I don't have a ton to say about this fandom other than they were very, very horny. Even though I had fun in the fandom, there still was that kind of lingering discomfort that never really went away. I want to say C- because I do put Star Wars above it, but it's not bad enough to put in D, I don't think. There were some good times, but the amount of uncomfortable moments eroded that down over time, looking back. Everything I just said about Black Butler, multiply that by 5 for Hetalia. Yeah, it's funny because I look back at some of my favorite fanfics of all time, and a good chunk of them came from Hetalia. The writers from that fandom were exquisite, but holy sh**, everything else. From the Nazi cosplay stints I'm sure many of you have heard of, to just blatant racism that happened in the fan base as well. Like the whole anime and manga were satirizing stereotypes, but that kind of flew over a lot of people's heads and they just fixated on the stereotypes. So mixing young people who are latching onto the stereotypes or just completely desensitized to the satire and are taking everything as, oh my god, they're making fun of this event or this event, it was not a good combination. Like, the only fond memories I have from Hetalia are those really, really good fanfics I read. And before you ask, no, I am not talking about George DeValer's fics, although I did read those and they were alright. People who loved it for the history and really got into exploring, things that the show and anime didn't cover, that was super interesting too. I met a lot of friends through Hetalia, had some interesting conversations about history because of it, but yeah, Hetalia's going in the D tier. Looking back, it was just a mess. This one I can say off the bat goes in A tier, but it's not an S tier for a number of reasons. Some of the shippers made me a little uncomfortable in terms of how they handled their ships, but it wasn't anything that was like super, super bad either. I loved Ling and Lanfan together, and Mei and Alphonse, and those ships were pretty much drama-free. It's just the Roy, Winry, Ed, Hawkeye sort of situation. Also, maybe a little too many memes about Nina and the dog, but other than that, the fandom was totally cool. Literally no other complaints other than people maybe being like, you need to watch the original and Brotherhood, not just Brotherhood. A tier for Fullmetal Alchemist. So with the show, I have mixed feelings about Young Justice in that the first season was so solid for me. I absolutely loved it. And then I hated how they did the time skip, and then the third season did another time skip. They kept on getting more new characters introduced, and the characters you fell in love with, they just weren't making as regular of an appearance. The series felt so stilted, and I think that reflected a lot with how the fans weren't happy in the fan base, and as a result, would fight amongst each other to vent out that frustration. If you looked at the early days of the Young Justice fandom, then it was fine, totally fine. But as the show progressed, so did the hostilities in the fan base. Sometimes I think people would have valid criticisms and valid points in terms of what they weren't happy with. Other times I would think, wow, they're being really mean. That's a step too far. So I may have to put Young Justice in C tier, unfortunately. Through my disappointment with the show and seeing how the fans handled everything, it just wasn't super enjoyable anymore. But I still go back some days and rewatch that first season and go back and read some Spitfire or Zatanna and Robin, and it's like, wow, I had a decent time.
Wow, fantastic, baby.
Oh boy, and now we move into the K-pop territory. It's kind of hard to say if I got into Shinee or Big Bang first. It was my junior year of high school, which was 2013. But in terms of this list, I'm just gonna go ahead and put Big Bang first because I want to keep the SM entertainment groups together. I kind of stopped watching anime my sophomore year of high school because I just was so busy with school and trying to prepare myself for college prep. So what did I do instead? Moved on to 3D Men. It was my first time being in a fandom of that sort, where the people aren't fictional, they exist IRL, and that changes a lot of the dynamics that happen between fans. Of course, there were people shipping themselves with the band members, and then people shipping the band members together. Lots of fanfic. So much fanfic. But yeah, it was just such a new world to me, and I was so in awe and in shock of everything that I think I was just like 24/7. I wasn't really on social media much for Big Bang, at least, so I was pretty sheltered away from the brunt of what I know the K-pop fandom can be like sometimes. So that, in combination of the constant chorus of a whole new world in my head, really just made it positive for me. I had a really jam time in the Big Bang fandom. All I really did was just listen to their music, read fanfic, and occasionally saw some scuffles in the YouTube comments. That was pretty much it. I know it's very different now, and I absolutely do not condone the actions of one of the X-Band members. I would give it a B rating.
Shiny's back.
So since I was really into Big Bang and Shinee roughly at the same time, pretty much everything I said for Big Bang can carry over to Shinee as well. I have fonder memories of Shinee though, for some reason. I think that's partially because I met my best friend through our conversations about Shinee. But yeah, I don't think a lot of people realize that I've been a Shaywall since 2013, and while I don't consider myself like super in the fandom anymore, I still really love Shinee. My heart broke when you know what happened, and they're always gonna have a very special place in my heart. Their music has a lot of nostalgic value for me. I actually got to see them in concert in 2014, 2015, and I got to see them do the Lucifer in person. Oh my god. I'm gonna have to put them in A, because again, I was very sheltered away from the fights that tend to happen in the K-pop community at the time. So it was just me and my high school friends jamming out to Shinee. It was a good time. A lot of fanfic for this one too, though, I will say. Okay, so this was the group when I started getting more exposed to how K-pop fan culture could be like in the more negative aspects. So I have some mixed feelings. There was a lot of tension between EXO and other groups that I liked, but not as much at the time. So I was very torn. I learned what sasaengs were, how vicious some of the fans could be. In AP Psych, I just remember freaking out about the members leaving to a friend who didn't even know what K-pop was, but she sat there and listened to me, and I thank her for that because, oh, I must have looked unhinged. But dude, that fandom was a mess. There was a lot of fighting about the members themselves, and why is this person always so popular over this person? This person needs more love. Oh no, why is this person getting more screen time? No! It's just, I don't want to say bad things about the fandom now because I'm not really into the fandom now. I'm very much on the periphery, and I still enjoy EXO's music, but like they're not a group I stan by any means anymore. So I'm just trying to use my memory of when I was in it, which was like 2014, 2015, 2016. You know what? Yeah, I'll put it in C. I read a lot of good fics for this one too, and some of the fan art was really, really, really good. Honestly, like the content creators were the best part of this fandom, as they usually are with any fan. I really enjoyed the music videos, and I remember listening to their music in my free period with another friend, and we'd just be like, yes, no, we like that progression right there. But online fans, I personally have had a very, very good experience with Haikyuu. I know as it's gotten bigger, other people have had different takes, but from my time in the fandom since like 2015, it's been fine. There have been a few shipping scuffles here and there, like Kurosuke versus Kuroken, and then people complaining that people feminize Kenma too much, and then a lot of debate over the fanon interpretation of Oikawa versus his actual canon self. I think a lot of the issues in the Haikyuu fandom exist because people put on their fanon glasses and see a certain character this way, and then that character's personality gets warped into this almost entirely different other person, and people who stay true to the canon version get upset, and then the people who love the fanon version get upset at them, and it's just, But I've always steered clear away from those, and unless I kind of venture out into the deeper pool of Haikyuu, then I really don't see all too much of it. At the moment, I'm kind of chilling in the Sakuatsu bubble, and I love it there. Everyone's really nice. It definitely was a lot chiller when I first started it out before it got popular, but it's just what happens when more and more people come into this like funneled interest. I will go ahead and give Haikyuu a B for ball. So this fandom I actually wasn't super active in, but I was in it enough to kind of see what was happening and be like, oh, that's interesting. The main reason I was in this fandom in the first place was, one, I wanted to see who the heck died, and two, Iruri. Levi and Erwin is still a ship I hold dear to my heart to this day. Oh, that ship got me through some hard times. People have always been really bad about spoilers in this fandom, but as someone who doesn't really care all that much about spoilers, it didn't bother me too much. I just know that it did get a lot of other people really angry. And that 4-year gap between season 1 and season 2, that was madness. Oh my god, and then the whole Eren and Levi ship drama that was happening, people staunchly defending it, people who absolutely hated it, people who were confused about why it was so big in the first place, people debating about whether or not it was homophobic that so-and-so died, and then people responding, everyone's dying, what are you talking about? It was chaos, complete and utter chaos. At least people would agree that they'd ship their favorite character with survival and happiness. The theories were interesting to go through, although a lot of them were just crying most of the time. I'm gonna go ahead and put AOT in the C tier. It was disruptive enough to be like, okay, I don't want to get involved in this more than I have to, but it wasn't so bad that I left entirely. To those fans who have been sticking around since the very beginning, you guys are the real ones. This one, I don't know if I'd call it obscure because it was really, really popular for summer, and then people just stopped talking about it. But Touken Ranbu is this game about historical Japanese swords turned into very pretty boys. I'm being completely honest when I say I joined the fandom because I was intrigued by these beautiful boys I kept seeing on Tumblr. I played the game for a little bit. I don't remember how, and I remember being frustrated because it wasn't in English, and I was like, how do I? But the fan art for it was immaculate. I wasn't in it for super long. There was only so much content for it, but I can't think of anything bad happening. Maybe people being frustrated that it wasn't in English so they couldn't play. I don't remember there being any tiffs about ships because people in general were pretty cool with multi-ship. My favorite pairing was Kogetsu Maru, the Fox Sword, and Mikazuki Munechika, the very pretty boy in blue with the tassels in his hair. There was so much spicy art for those two, holy frick. I think maybe I had a really good fan experience with this one too because a lot of the fan police types, the ones that lurk in Western-based fandoms, couldn't really get into this one as much because the game was in Japanese. So they weren't going around being like, you can't ship this, you can't ship that, blah, 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 blah. It just was really, really laid back. I'll go ahead and put this one in A tier because in my experience, as short of a time as it was in that fandom, it was all chill. It makes me so sad thinking I could have been standing BTS since the beginning in 2013. But no! I was watching Frozen instead. In 2013, that was when I was starting to get into K-pop, and I remember watching their, I think, We Are Bulletproof music video when I was scanning groups to start, like, listening to. But I just couldn't get into the song at the time, and their outfits really threw me in for a loop. And when they debuted, there were like 6 other groups that began with B. As a baby K-pop fan, I just moved on, and I wish I didn't. But alas, it's okay, I found them again in college. My roommate was really into them, so 2015 was when I got reintroduced to them and fell in love. ARMY has done so much good in terms of charity, in terms of supporting the members, and they have services for other armies to utilize as well, like tutoring services, services for help. But there is a lot of drama that happens both internally and externally for the fandom. External fandom wars are always a thing in K-pop. It's XOLs versus ARMY or ARMY versus Blinks. It never ends. But internally, it gets vicious. Holy crap, if you think fan wars are bad, ARMY on ARMY violence is something else. Because yeah, I mean, so much good and so much bad exists simultaneously in that fan base. Maybe times have changed a bit, but since the fan base is only getting bigger and bigger, I doubt it. And this is just my experience. Some armies have had the time of their life and never had any issues with the fan base, and for that, awesome. That's amazing. For other armies, they had a horrible time, and to this day, they're still not active on social media because they can't handle the stress of big fan bases like that. And it's hard because so much criticism of ARMY comes from outside the fan base, so they don't understand where a lot of these fans are coming from, why they're so protective, and why they just love these boys so much. And then fans obviously get defensive when they're being questioned like that. So it's just this feedback loop of, oh god, no. And a lot of elitism too. Like, oh, I've been in ARMY since 2013. therefore you have no right to talk over me. Or, oh, you're this old or this young, you shouldn't be here. It's dumb. As of right now, I'm gonna put the BTS fandom at a C. I don't think they deserve to be put at a D because, again, they have done so much good for themselves and for other people, but at the same time, I've seen so much horrible go down that I don't want to put it higher. I'm sorry, BTS fandom, you're not getting a B. It's very odd because I was in that fandom, like nonstop. I took a step back from the fandom a couple months ago just because I was starting to get a little burnt out from the constant content. I needed a break and to kind of refresh my palate before diving back in. And looking at it from more of an outsider's perspective, it's like looking at something with a fresh pair of eyes and being able to go, oh wow, things aren't as swell as I convinced myself they were from the inside. So with any fandom in general, I encourage you, if you feel yourself slipping further and further into it and you're getting more and more chronically online in that fandom, take a step back and just get a fresh set of eyes on the fandom you're in. You might realize that there was behavior or other things that you may have been excusing or ignoring that maybe you shouldn't have been. RWBY is a fandom that, while I'm part of, I'm also not really deep into. But I know enough about the drama where I'm just like, yeah, I don't want to be deeper in it. Everyone I know who still watches it, as well as everyone I've talked to online, agrees that they kind of just watch to partake rather than to actually enjoy it nowadays. It's just kind of for everyone except for the really diehard fans. And those fans go at it with each other like it's Sunday Night Football. I don't watch football. People are always so angry from what I see. Like, wow, this isn't what fandom is supposed to be. I don't have too much of an opinion other than, wow, are y'all okay? It just feels like the majority of people are super frustrated with it. And then the handful of people that still really love it are conflicted about why they love it. I'll put this one in C because I haven't seen enough horrible fights happen where I was like, oh god, no, you're going in D tier. But at the same time, it's not happy enough to put anywhere else. Oh, Voltron. Where did we begin with Voltron? I owe a lot to Voltron in that without it, I wouldn't have made my channel in the first place. It's through Voltron that I was able to get my niche on YouTube and like talk about fandoms and just rant about this silly show I loved a lot and eventually stopped loving. But the fans, the first thing I think of when it comes to Voltron fans is of course the infamous Sheath versus Clance war. As a Clancer myself, I really didn't care what you shipped. I had friends who absolutely adored Sheath, and I was like, cool, I like Clance. We're still friends. I even have a Clance shrine on my shelf to this day. It's smaller because it makes me sad when I look at it, but it's still there. And when people would ask me about Sheath in my videos, I'd just be like, I don't personally ship it. I love Clance, but I don't care if you do. And when I said that, oh, the amount of hate I got. Like through the Twitter filter, it went from, I don't care what you ship, do whatever, I just like Clance, to Coley is a filthy Shaladin, we don't claim her, she's problematic as It's just really ironic now because all the accounts that were sending me hate and harassing me apparently have been banned now, so justice served. But yeah, as a Clancer who was indifferent to Sheath, that was enough to put me on people's hit list because I wasn't denouncing it. Meanwhile, voice actors who actually liked the ship and people who worked on the show who liked the ship were getting death threats to their family. That's not it. It's one thing to dislike a ship. If it makes you uncomfortable, if you do not agree with it, if you do not like it, that is totally okay. There are so many ships that I do not like or make me uncomfortable. And I don't share them because I don't want those shippers to get hate, because it is, at the end of the day, a ship. I don't understand why people can't just scroll away or block or mute things when they don't like it, because by not doing that and engaging with the things you don't like over and over again, why would someone who doesn't like those things put themselves in that trajectory again and again? Like, if a ship makes me anxious, I don't want to see it. I do not want to be anxious. So I will do everything in my control to not see it. But there are people who actively go into the tags and harass people and send death threats, and it blows my mind how entitled these people are. It's like a little kid throwing a tantrum at the supermarket every time I see it. The whole age debate was there with Voltron too, and people were calling Shiro a pedophile. It was a nightmare. It's like people learned this new buzzword and all of a sudden they're just throwing it left and right. And poor Shiro is being labeled a pedophile, and people who aren't even in the fandom just see, oh, he's the pedophile one. It's like, no, he's not, I promise you. Voltron as a show makes me so disappointed because of the amount of potential it had. It could have been so great, but due to writing clashes and creative differences, it just came out so poorly. And this, of course, bred a lot of infighting between fans. Fans who were rooting for outcome A, but then outcome B, people were like, no! And then outcome C happens out of the blue, and they're both just like, why? And then chaos. So much harassment no matter where you went, no matter what you shipped, no matter what you wanted to happen. If you were on the canon side of things or were completely in the fanon side of things, there was chaos. I think on Voltron's 3rd anniversary since it ended, I want to rewrite the entire show for y'all. But until that day happens, Voltron is going sorely in the D category. There's nowhere else I could put it. So much went down in that fandom. I was present for every moment of it, and I wish that it could have gone a lot better. Such a waste. I went to conventions when Voltron was super hot and still beloved. A couple years later, all the Voltron merch in the clearance bins because no one wants it anymore. That's literally the fandom experience right there, just in the trash.
Can you hear my heartbeat?
Oh, Yuri on Ice. It's a shame that my experience with the fandom was not as great as my experience with the show itself. Yuri on Ice really got me through my sophomore year of college, which was probably one of the hardest years of my life. It was a beautiful, shining ray of hope in the little dark puddle I was stuck in. As a dancer, I absolutely loved seeing the choreography and the costumes and how real it felt to actual figure skate. But the fan base, it wasn't as nice as I expected it to be, and that was a gross disappointment. A lot of arguing over petty stuff like, oh, this theory is crap, this is what I think is gonna happen. People who weren't satisfied with the ending or were super mad about the victory kiss being censored. People were calling Victor abusive at some point. I can't remember for what exactly. People were saying that Oda Yuri was problematic. Just a lot of rude fans overall, especially on Tumblr. Oh Jesus, and I totally forgot about the people who were being really creepy to real figure skaters and saying, oh, it's like real life Yuri on Ice to their Instagram photos. Yikes. Just seeing a lot of little things like that, and then a lot of people complaining about those things, and then all the fights that ensued. I think I'm gonna have to put Yuri on Ice in C tier, unfortunately. It wasn't so bad that I have to knock it down further, but the little things that kind of accumulated over time that kept grating on my nerves, that partially ruined the fan experience for me. Obviously had some great memories. I watched it with my cousin, with my college friends, and we had a blast just freaking out about what would happen next and the scores and all that jazz. But online, it was a different story.
Are the crystal gems?
Oh, Steven Universe. Wow, this is a dumpster fire. I watched Steven Universe because I thought it was a cute show, and I would watch it for good vibes with my brother when I had the time. But people who felt very strongly about it had things to say in the fandom. Obviously, if it meant that much to them, then of course they're gonna have some strong opinions and would want this to happen over this, or would want to see their favorite characters do this instead of this. But all that was happening on such a scale that it was just too much to deal with. So much fighting nonstop about anything and everything, from the smallest things to the biggest thing. The show had a lot of hiccups that, I mean, I was even upset about, even as a person who wasn't super into the show. At the same time, there were things getting picked apart that I thought really didn't need to be. But again, people saw the show differently than I did, and they wanted X, Y, and Z to happen, and they had high hopes for it, and when it didn't, hell broke loose. There's a plethora of horror stories that happened with this fandom. A lot of what happened is just painful to think about because, I mean, these are just kids at the end of the day. It got vicious at times. It really drove home the fact that people online can be cruel in the worst ways, especially to young people who may not be able to process that cruelty healthily. Yeah, this one hurts to think about, so I'm gonna have to put it in D. I always get so tickled when people say that this is the worst fandom ever, because I have dug into fandoms that I'm not a part of, and just from my periphery position, I could tell that these kids have not seen anything yet. This fandom is massive, and with any big fandom, you're gonna have very, very chill people, very, very not chill people, good people, bad people, people of all shades of gray. It's just clashing nonstop. I know a lot of people see this fandom as cringe, and yeah, I can see where that comes from. The fan base is a lot younger, and so they're not going to be as restrained in many ways, and they're just letting everything out. But I think a lot of these people should remember that at some point in their lives, they were probably at that stage too, and so to be a little more generous, I guess, to younger fans. A big, big problem with this fandom is, of course, the shipping wars. And then on top of that, there's a high level of fan policing going on, where if you like this character, you're problematic, or if you like these things, you're not problematic. It's just like a list of things that are a-okay and things that will get you canceled in the fandom. And for me, it's just, I just want to watch a show about these kids learning to be superheroes. But in my own personal experience, I just avoid those things like the plague and stick to my very select bubble. And in that bubble, I don't see none of that. And I'm also not super, super active in the My Hero fandom. I'm there, but I'm not digging around for content 24/7. And it's weird, I see more people on the fandom than bad things happening in the fandom itself nowadays, which unfortunately tends to happen a lot. So in my own personal experience, I'm gonna go ahead and put My Hero in C tier. Yeah, I mean, My Hero's been bad at times, but I've seen worse. It's gonna get a little weird, gonna get a little wild. Star versus the Forces of Evil had a very disappointing finale, and people were not ashamed to admit it. Star had a really promising premise, and I did enjoy a good chunk of it, but it kind of went off the rails at the end, and a lot of things that I wish they did or they could have done didn't happen. I'm trying to think of disagreements that may have happened that escalated a lot with this fandom, but I don't think I can. Except for people's visions of how it should have ended conflicting with each other. But even then, people were like, hey, it's still better than what actually happened. This fandom was also a lot younger than others I've been in, so there wasn't a ton of online content for it. It was very much just, what did you think of this episode? Oh, it was all right. I didn't really like it. That's valid. I guess there were a few scuffles about who should have ended up with Star, Marco, or Tom. In the end, I saw a lot of people just jumping on the, you know what, Star, Tom, go. There you go train. Maybe all the drama was restrained to Instagram, and I rarely go on Instagram. So for my own personal experience with Star versus the Forces of Evil, I'm gonna go ahead and put it at a B tier. Overwatch, I had a lot of fun with the game, but the fandom was another story. As per a lot of video game fan bases, it was a lot of contention of who's the best character to play? Oh, you play this one? You're trash. Oh, this one's a total basic normie player. Of course you play that one. You're a girl. And even outside the whole gamer bro crowd, it still was really hectic. I saw some ship wars get pretty intense, and there were a lot of people arguing about the diversity and whether it was valid or not. A lot of people were unhappy and arguing about the representation. There was a lot of very sensitive topics that were being argued about constantly. And the lore wasn't super fleshed out either, so people would argue about that too. And yeah, I mean, I don't really know anyone who plays Overwatch anymore. I kind of want to put this one in D, but I don't feel like it was horrible. I think I'll go ahead and put it in C tier. I got into Yowamushi Pedal after the hype died down, so by the time I was there, all the fan content kind of came and went. I remember I was on the hunt for merch for it at Anime Expo, and literally only like 2 or 3 booths still had stuff for it. So I think because of that, I kind of walked into an empty room and just kind of made a home for myself. It was very quiet when I was there, and not a lot of drama was happening. I followed a lot of Japanese artists, and I don't speak Japanese, so I would just kind of be like, oh, the art is great. Just a lot of people waiting for the manga to get translated. A lot of fan content was coming from Japan. And even then, it was kind of hard to find sometimes. I have a handful of fics from that fandom that I still really love. I have them bookmarked and saved to read again later. But even though it was kind of an empty room, I was deep in this fandom. And I was going through archive posts and just like saying, okay, what I miss? Even then, I didn't find much drama at all. I'd see people grumbling here and there about which team should have won this or how this bike battle should have gone off, but nothing else. Just a really cute, wholesome fandom. Even the shipping wars between, oh, I ship this guy with this guy versus this guy with this guy. Oh, okay. It was just very amicable. I think part of it is because it was a lot bigger in Japan than it was in the West, so you didn't get a lot of the fights that happen with very Western-heavy fandoms occurring. People kept to themselves, and it was really nice. No complaints here from that fandom. I'm gonna go ahead and put Yowamushi Pedal in S tier. Promare was really chill. The only things I remember happening with Promare that kind of tainted my perception of the fan base was just that people argued so much about top-bottom dynamics in terms of Galileo. Like, obviously you can have a preference. I have a preference, and if you don't have a preference, that's okay too. But there would be like 3 different parties at once just barking at each other like, Gallo tops! No Leo tops! Oh, why are you guys so fixated on who tops? Switch rights! Because we have a preference! Shut up! No, you shut up! And then... But other than that, swell movie, great fan content. Let's go ahead and put it in B. For bottom. I really liked how people came together for praising the animation, for praising how offbeat it kind of was, but still really enjoyable. Really no shipping drama because just the 2 main characters are so perfect for each other. Yeah, it's just those darn top-bottom dynamics. JJK, one of the newer fandoms I've joined recently. There's definitely a chill majority and a angry minority, and sometimes the angry minority kind of leaks into the majority a bit and everyone's like, oh, here we go again. But at least from what I've witnessed, it's not bad. Like, I'm gonna go ahead and put JJK in A tier off the bat because at least from my experience, the fans seem a bit more mature and they're just kind of vibing. The anime is so grotesque and kind of in your face as it is. A lot of people who latch on to, I think, classic shonen tropes and things of that nature get kind of deterred from it. There's always contention with the manga readers and the anime only watchers because they're like, oh, just wait till you get to this part. And they're like, no spoilers! But other than that, I've just been having a good time. Really not many shipping wars except for some fan policing going on in terms of like which ships are okay and which aren't. But I'm just super excited for season 2 and the movie. Also, I'm in Sadosuku Hell, send help. Genshin as a game is very enjoyable, but as for the fandom, it has turned into something that's just not for me. It's almost giving Voltron a run for its money because it's a lot of the same problem. Age debates, non-stop, shipping wars, but the thing is, there's no main shipping war like there is for Sheath versus clans. It's just a bunch of ships at war with each other and then everyone on K-Luke. I don't even ship K-Luke, but there are fan police that I suspect secretly do because they're on it 24/7. And good lord, when I made my deep dive into the Genshin fandom video, I wasn't super in the fan base at the time. So because of that, I was like, oh wow, these characters are so cute and this and this, not knowing that I unwittingly stepped onto a landmine. And I got a lot of comments just saying like, Coley, you better not ship so-and-so, or oh my god, I can't believe Coley ships this. Ah! You can't see any content involving Venti, Aether, or Lumine, a handful of others, but mainly those 3, without having a whole war in the comments about their age. Genshin is just in flames over it. MiHoYo, I don't think is going to be doing anything about it anytime soon because they don't care. It's characters for them and the Eastern fan base does not care. And honestly, I admire how chill they are. There's this meme going around where it's like, do you block and mute things you don't like or are you a Westerner? So much fan policing is happening in Genshin. It is absolutely ridiculous. There's so many people with savior complexes in this fan base, and these fan police just don't listen. You can bring out receipt after receipt from the lore and the story, but they just don't care. There is so much cultural insensitivity as well. I can go on a rant about this forever. The ignorance is baffling and extremely disappointing. The cultural insensitivity coming from these people who claim to be so open-minded and accepting. There are so many people, especially in America, who are talking over those with the cultural insight and knowledge to add more depth to this game, but they're not being listened to. Absolutely obnoxious, like performative activism at its finest. It's just fighting non-stop. I hate it here. Even in my little bubble, I can't have peace because people will barge in and start making a mess, and it's like, well, great, now I have to clean this up. Genshin, going in the D tier. Unless it gets better, which I really, really hope it does because it's still a relatively new fandom. There's so much content left to be released, but I don't know. I mean, maybe the fandom will grow up a bit and start seeing the error of their ways, but until that happens, I am going to do my best to just vibe in the corner.
Let's go together, God take me to
Sk8. I'm feeling B vibes for this one off the bat. It's not bad by any means. Like, I feel like the sports animes tend to be a bit higher on the list just because there's only so much you can nitpick, I feel like. One of my gripes is that people are taking their hatred of Adam to astronomical levels. Do not get me wrong, I do not like the guy. He freaking smashed Cherry's face in with a skateboard and is a total creeptalanga. No. But also, people are treating him like he's a real person and wishing him dead, and it's like, he's an anime villain. I don't like him either, but maybe calm down a bit. Like, they're censoring his name when they're talking about him like he's Voldemort or something. It's like you can't have a conversation about Adam, about him as a villain, as a character, without people jumping down your throat and going, Adam, don't talk about Adam. Other than the whole Adam tiff, people have been really chill for the most part. A lot of Renka shippers, a lot of Matcha Blossom shippers. People debate if shipping Adam and Tadashi is okay, and I'm just kind of like, take what you want, man. I'm gonna be in my corner over here. It's a very young fandom too, and I don't know how much it'll grow because we only have so much content for it. But yeah, from what I've seen, things are, for the most part, pretty good. B for bored. So yeah, those were my fandom rankings. Yay! I've been at this for hours. I'm so tired. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to share your own experiences in any of the fandoms I've listed, then please feel free to do so. Whether they were similar to my own or incredibly different, I would love to hear it. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!